I got introduced to Peter's work in 2000 and immersed myself in the study of his work from 2006 to 2010 and really to the present. So it's been a very important influence in my life. And when I went into the Somatic Experiencing training, which is a very rigorous training and a model that he's been developing for 45 years, he's really a pioneer in this field of somatics, trauma, neuroscience. When I went into his work, I was already deeply experienced I had been immersed in the yoga field for 2 decades, as well as a psychological field. So I used the opportunity to engage my trainers and start to blend this technology of somatic experiencing, because it's a technology that can be applied to many different modalities. And what it would mean to take yoga as it's practiced, physical yoga, meditation, pranayama, and then start to integrate these potent techniques for working with trauma, with the contents of our experience, because we live in a culture where not only have most people experienced overt traumas of different sorts, there's also the everyday trauma. There's the trauma that happens living in a time where we're in global crisis and we live in speed and broken families and divorces, and if it's not us, then it's people that we love. And there's also developmental trauma, which it happens even in the context of the best parents who are trying to raise us well, but the traumas that happen at different stages of development. So here we have this ancient tradition of yoga, which is dated anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000 years. The scholars have very different perspectives on when it began, but as they say in yoga, a long time ago. And these modern traditions of somatics and trauma research combined with neuroscience, but really, in Peter's case, very specific techniques that are languaged and packaged in a way that are very accessible. And for me to combine these two powerful entry points into our embodiment is a very holistic approach to working with ourselves, not only toward working with our trauma and wounds, but toward well-being and thriving. There's a few powerful principles that Peter talks about, or techniques, we could say. One is called resourcing, one is called titration, and one is called pendulation. Resourcing is learning how to access pleasure, spaciousness, well-being in the body. And as much as one might think that we want that and we would move toward that, it can be very, very hard for people to learn how to inhabit pleasure in their body. We're often so conditioned toward states of contraction and habituated, even not in the body at all, even as much as we want pleasure. So to learn how to embody and practice allowing wholeness and pleasure in the body is a very, very powerful technique. And the titration is also one of the most dramatic, or not dramatic, but ahas for people who get into the somatic experiencing methodology, because until trauma research taught us this, there was this idea that to heal something you have to go into the center of it, and if only I can go deep enough and I can somehow clear this out. And in fact, what research is showing and experience is that doing that often simply re-traumatizes the individual. So titration is this principle where you just go in for small amounts. You touch in, and this is combined with the principle of pendulation, like a pendulum goes in and out. It's both a natural response of the body when it's in equilibrium, but it's also something that can be taught and practiced. So we go in and we touch into the deeper levels of our experience, things that scare us, not because they're necessarily bad. They could be very good, but they're new. and we touch into our fear, we touch into our anger, we touch into the contractions, and then we come out of them. And it's not only the touching in that's so valuable, but it's actually the learning that we can come out and the experience that we can come out. Because when we learn that we can come out of these experiences, the courage naturally arises within us to dare to go in. We discover, oh, I can go into the places that scare me, as Pema Chodron articulated in her best-selling book, these places that scare us, that we often live our whole lives in avoidance of. And we narrow our lives because we're consciously or unconsciously so afraid to touch into our anger, our fear, our trauma. And we construct our lives around them. And with these careful methodologies, and again, yoga so elegantly opens the body and gives us access.
Take a breath into here, a couple of breaths, and then I'm going to have you micro-adjust me one more time after a couple of breaths, after you settle in. You can watch her body, you can imagine, you can even do it if you want while she does it, and take the adjustments because we're all really similar.
And then by having knowledge of what to do, once the body is opened, when we have this toolbox of skills, not just to breathe with it or observe it, but actually how to unpack the images, how to titrate, how to pendulate, how to hold them in compassion, how much to go in, how much to go out. It becomes, your yoga practice also becomes a self-engaged psychological inquiry, in addition to being absolutely wonderful for health, vitality, well-being on any level.